Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of the A-Team Bad Guys documentary. I'm delighted this evening to be joined by the one and only Jeff Doucette, who played the role of Malcolm Jones in Season 3, Episode 13 of the A-Team Breakout. I suppose, Jeff, first of all, I suppose back in the 1980s, A-Team was one of those the big TV franchise that every sort of actor wanted to play a role on as such. And did you feel at the time when you got that landed that gig and that gig came about to play the character Malcolm Jones, did you ever think to yourself that maybe 20, 30 years on that people will be still talking about the A-Team? And obviously, have you ever been asked about your time or your role playing your character?
I've never been asked about my time on the show. And I never thought that I'd be asked years to come, because to me, it just felt like it was a thing of the moment. It was Mr. T and all this kind of stuff. It was just like a quickie to, Stephen Conlan in America is known for kind of these quickie type series that aren't really deep or anything. They're kind of put together in a formula way, so I didn't think it was going to last much at all, but I loved the money I made, and so I did it.
And I suppose, Jeff, in terms of that sort of show, you played a bank robber along with Stephen Sander, Lord of Mercy, who is no longer with us, who played the role of Deke Logan, and you were you went about in terms of kidnapping Dwight Schultz and the A-Team fan is such, and we get your appearance. You can come out of the bloom. You're introduced to us at a petrol station there and then, and we get to see your characters. And dare I say it, you seem to be the more cool-headed of the two characters, while Deke was very much out there in terms of his aggressive nature.
He was the more aggressive one, to be sure. And part of what I'm talking about there, that there's a formula involved in all these Stephen Conlan things, is that there's always a criminal, the main bad guy, and that was Stephen or Deke, and then there's always an assistant criminal, and I was the assistant criminal, and I knew that going in. Oh, I'm playing the assistant criminal, So it's like the guys you see in the old 40s movies. Gee, boss, I'll do whatever you want, kind of, those kind of guys, Sure, boss. That's the kind of guy I was. I was the assistant, and so he was really like angry and a lot of mean looks all the time, and I didn't have so many mean looks. I tried to act mean a few times, but I don't think I was that mean, was I?
I suppose in terms of that episode, in terms of the A-Team, it was very the script was very thought out, very well done in terms of we get to see the two characters, Murdoch and BA, pitted together against ye two, and you seem to have an ongoing battle from the time that you're arrested to the time you're putting the prison work camp together, even to the time of the escape. It's there and then. It's almost ye two are very much in contrast against each other. It's a 2v2 effect.
Yeah, that's right. And the girl who was there to help us escape from the prison camp or whatever it was? Tawny. Tawny. Her real name is Tawny. I don't know, forget what her name was in the show. But Tawny was a friend of mine, and we were in a class together. And she, a very beautiful woman, a big model over here and everything. And I was kind of jealous that he got to have the girlfriend and I didn't. That's part of the assistant criminal's job, though, is you don't get the girl. You got to just say, yeah, boss.
Yeah. And I suppose in terms of working on set with Mr. T, I suppose he's a very big, larger than life a figure. Apparently very jovial, very fun-witted a guy, likes to have the crack and humor off set. But if you look at the man, I suppose, if you went face to face, shoulder to shoulder, he's very much a big specimen. He's a very daunting, imposing type look of a character.
He looks imposing in his face and in his that haircut and everything like that. But he's not really that big. He's he's maybe 5'9".
Mm.
And so that's not that big. I'm 5'10", so I'm taller than he is. But yeah, he has that thing of the Rocky thing behind him, that he was a big tough guy. So and on film, most of the guys in film are short. I don't get roles sometimes because I'm too tall. The lead guys are short for some reason. I don't know why. The handsome guys are short. Are you short?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so you're probably handsome. All right, so those guys get you have to cast not too big people around them, so I was only an inch or so taller. But uh Dwight Schultz I interacted with him a lot more than Mr. T. Mr. T was great, and he
Yeah.
would spend as much time as he could with kids and things like that, and he'd tell them to stay in school, sucker, and all this kind of stuff. He was being very good with them, but I didn't talk to him that much on the show, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Dwight Schultz, I ended up striking up a friendship with, though. He's a very good guy, and we still talk on Facebook all the time.
I suppose you mentioned Dwight there, and I suppose Dwight Schultz really, and you can really see his theatrical background and his sort of theatre background as such coming across in the A-Team. He can go from high pitch to low pitch, very sudden, very quick, at ease, really. And there's almost a sense of the real comedian genius with him in terms of the comedy he sort of bring. All the other characters really have to, in the A-Team, sort of, they have their comedy moments, but you feel they're trying to bring it on. For Dwight, it just comes natural to him, I say. He just loves it, the humor of it.
Hard to keep that show pretty light, what are all the guys' names? I forgot all the guys' names now, the A-Team. But
George Peppard and Dirk Benedict as well.
Dirk Benedict, those two always had a little fun thing back and forth, and Mr. T and Dwight Schultz always had fun little things going back and forth. And in this episode, as I remember, Mr. T, he was always irritated at Dwight Schultz's character, it seems like, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't he always? Yeah. And in this one, he was really irritated. And didn't they build some kind of weird car or something that?
Yes, out of the parts of an ambulance, or parts of an ambulance, a leftover ambulance.
Yeah, they were stranded somewhere and they had to make do with what they, so we laughed a lot. Matter of fact, that's right. Dwight was in theater, and I was in a theater group with him as well. So, we at least stayed friends and stuff. And I'm not always friends with people I work with in Hollywood because there's so many of them. And like my parents always would say to me, "Hey, do you know Robert Redford?" I go, "No, just because I'm in Hollywood doesn't mean I know Robert Redford." But Dwight was one that I knew. And Tawny, who played the girlfriend in that, she was one I knew. But they were about the only ones on the show that I knew. And I think the mother of the young kid.
Okay.
I forgot who she was, but I kind of knew her. We struck up a little conversation. I kind of knew her. But it was fun working on it because I got a week on this show where I got to play a bad guy, which I started out in stand-up comedy.
Okay.
So I was playing a lot of sitcom stuff, and then all of a sudden I got cast in this, and I went, "Oh, well, now I got to be a real guy, a real bad guy." So I got to play a bad guy, and it was fun.
And I suppose in terms of working with Steve Sander, who was the other sort of guest star in terms of appearances, in terms of sort of a bad guy sort of persona, I suppose you coming in, you're working that one episode, you almost want to feel in tandem as such. Did you have to try and sort of get to sit down and get to know each other to strike up that chemistry in terms of trying to get that feel that you knew each other for a long time?
I would have liked to have done that, but Steve wasn't really into that. He just went and did his job, scowled, and did whatever you do as a bad guy. And I think maybe part of his work as an actor, he has his own little agenda inside what he's doing. Probably didn't include me or whatever, or he didn't feel the need to strike up a friendship with me. I was just a useful tool for him or something, So I didn't really talk to him that much. We agreed on where we stand, what we do, and all that, but not a whole lot of personal stuff going on between us.
And I suppose that, Jeff, one thing that struck me about the 1980s, and I spoke to a few people so far. I remember asking Joey Oresco the sort of same question, who played another bad guy in the A Team as well. And the question I asked Joey was, in terms of the A Team, when you get a guest star role in that in the 1980s, where you think to yourself, wow, if I do really well in this sort of appearance and this sort of show, that maybe in future seasons they might ask me back to play a different villain or a different character, a lead in one of those episodes, because that was a current trend with the A Team, that many sort of guest stars who appeared in season 1 or season 2 came back as other bad
Different
guys.
characters, as different characters
Yeah,
entirely.
in season 4 or 5.
I
You
thought
wouldn't
that
see
might
today
happen.
now.
I thought that might happen, and I think Steve did a number of them. But I didn't do any more A Teams, but I did do another Canal show. It was called Hunter. It was
Okay.
with Fred Dreyer, this guy. He's like a Dirty Harry type of cop.
Yeah.
And I got hired to be his mechanic because, like, if you ever saw the Dirty Harry movies,
Yeah.
they're always crashing cars and going. So I'm his mechanic and always going, "What'd you bring me now? And now this one's broken. How do you know?" It was a fun character. But Fred Dreyer, who was the star of the show, evidently didn't like me for some reason.
Okay.
Our first scene I did with it, I did exactly what I did in the audition, and we did everything fine. And he just went, and he walks away. Then later on, I'm doing another scene where I'm supposed to just walk through the police house or the office, and there's a row of desks, and I'm supposed to see him and go and just walk away and just do a take on him because he ruined another car. And he was sitting there watching me, and he kept telling the director, "Do it again, do it again." He had me do like 20 takes of this. That should have been one take, 2 at the most.
Wow.
And I thought, what is he tell me what you want me to do? I mean, what I'm doing everything you're telling me. What is it you want? Anyway, so he had me fired. So my recurring role went out the window.
I suppose that, Jeff, that sort of trend in terms of recurring roles as sort of villains in sort of TV series, good guys, shorty age, that sort of went out the window, I suppose, come the late 90s as such, because once you appeared in a sort of a TV series and your face was shown as one particular person, very rare that they bring you back, because the fans would associate or look back and say, hey, a minute, weren't he back here? Weren't he someone else? How can he be a different sort of person? But in the 80s, that sort of wasn't the way. It was very much what it was the season. It was just consigned. If you were in the season, that was it. If you weren't on the season, you could be in a different season.
You have to be the same character if you're going to come back.
Yeah.
I've done a number of Grey's Anatomies, and I recurred on this show called Newhart, Bob Newhart show.
Yeah.
For years and years and years, and I was always the same character. And when they wanted to bring me back on Grey's Anatomy, the thing was written for a different character, but they had to change it to my name, the name I played on the first episode. So yeah, they're very conscious of that. They don't. Every once in a while, you'll get a show that'll bring someone back as a different character in a year or two, but most of them don't do it anymore. They just want you to be the same character.
Yeah, and everyone that I spoke to in terms of so far that have played a guest star role in the A Team said the experience on set, that while they were there, they found it very enjoyable, very jollyful, good crack, good humor, sort of light-hearted, good entertainment, and they really liked their time. I haven't heard anyone come on who's guest star in the A Team said, "Oh, I didn't like that," or "I didn't get on with this person," or "this person had such a big ego," or such. An awful lot of people who said very complimentary things about Stephen Canal and George Peppard and the main cast as such.
And the director of this episode, Dennis Donnelly, I think his name was, I think it's because they hire actors who they think are good, and they hire you to play the part. Then they don't sit there and get on you. They just say, play the part and we'll shoot it. So they leave you the freedom to be the character that you envision that you should be. And in the casting process, you show them that, and then they approve it, and then you go on the show and you play the character that you had auditioned with, basically. So I think that, yeah, it's good that they give you the freedom to be that character, and they give you freedom to play around and maybe try something new occasionally on a different take. You know, the saying was, okay, we got that one in the can. Can I do one for me now? And then we do a take where I do what I want to do. You know, it's all in the script, but I do it in a different way. You know, maybe I'll add a little funny thing to it, or maybe I'll add an extra thing where I knock something off the table or something like that, just because I wanted. That was what struck me in the moment. It was my turn to do it my way. And they let you do that. They may not put it in the final cut, but they let you do it. So that's always fun too.
Yeah, and I suppose, Jeff, in terms of the A-Team, another thing that struck me was, in terms of speaking to people, how polished everything was for guest stars when they arrived. They were coming to a slick sort of, they felt they were coming to a slick, well-organized, well-run machine. Everyone knew their jobs. Everything, timing was great, that you weren't standing around sort of wondering, or there was no sort of hiccups at all. Everyone says that the A-Team was very slick, very well run, and everything was done the way it should be done in terms of takes and everything.
Yep, the crew knew exactly what their job was. If the director would say, "I want this," the crew would just do it all, and we step in and we act our way. Well, we do a rehearsal, and then the crew would see what it was, and then he'd say, "Okay, I want to light this, that, the other thing." So then we'd sit down for a while they're doing all that. Then we'd step in and just play it, and it was a slick machine. They most of the crews on a series, they all work together so much. They speak in shorthand. They know exactly what to do. They know the kind of lighting that's necessary for this show. They know the kind of prop placement that's necessary for this show. They know the kind of sets we need for this show, you know. So they go about their jobs very professionally. I love the crews on all these shows. They're so together because they have a job. They just do their job and then they go home.
Yeah, and I suppose, Jeff, in terms of your episode there, as we said again, Breakout Season 3, Episode 13, I know you did it back in the 1980s, but was there ever a time, maybe a decade later or 2 decades later, where you or your loved ones or family were sitting down on the TV and all of a sudden the episode comes on and you're saying to yourself, hey, I remember, just struck you, I appeared in this show? Or do you ever start to see the A-Team start to come on TV and say, I wonder, is this going to be my episode that's appearing this week?
Yeah, I do. And then I get people on Facebook or people calling me or emailing me, say, hey, I was just watching TV and I saw you on A-Team. You had hair. You know, it's all gone. But I had hair then. So I go, yeah, and I was tough too, you know. So yeah, and I love it when I do tune into an old show that I've done. And sometimes I'll forget. So it's happened that I forgot that I did the show. Yeah. And I go, this show seems real familiar to me. Why have I seen this thing before? And all of a sudden I appear and I go, oh, that I did that show. Because I don't remember all the shows I did, but all of a sudden I'll see one and I'll go, this seems really familiar to me. And then I'll see myself and I'll go, oh my God.
And I suppose, Jeff, in terms of people that have guest starred in the A-Team and played sort of bad roles, you're really in with illustrious sort of company in terms of bad guys. You have everyone from Yaphet Kotto to Robert Davi to Michael Ironside. The list goes on and on and on in terms of, Ernie Hudson has played a role. You know,
everyone did a role on the A-Team eventually. If you were an actor in Hollywood, eventually you did a role on the A-Team. It is a club. Anyone who was around in the early 80s did something on the A-Team.
Did something on the A-Team.
Yeah.
And I suppose in terms of TV shows from that genre, the A-Team, I think it's Dukes of Hazzard, Starsky and Hutch, other shows that come to mind, Kojak as such. They were all sort of, in terms of the era, there were standard bearers for their sort of time, and they sort of lived past their time in terms of spanning maybe 2, 3, 4 decades on, and there all seems to be a grow or love appeal for them that all sorts of different generations can sit down and watch them even to this day and still get a kick or a buzz out of them. And maybe TV series that are produced to this day, they probably last maybe a year or two. People see them once or see them once or thing and say, yeah, I don't really want to see that episode. I've seen it before. But the A-Team and probably episodes like that, you can watch it 3 or 4 times. If you haven't seen it in a month or time, it's like, yes. So they have that sort of never-ending feeling, even though they've actually only served a period of time in the 80s or when they were produced.
And I think that now with all the streaming networks and all that kind of stuff, they need content. They need content for people to watch and stuff like that. So I still get residuals from, let's see, what was I did an episode of a show called 8 is Enough. And that was one of my first TV shows. And I still get residuals. It's like 1 or 2 cents, but I still get residuals from that, which means it's playing somewhere. People are watching it, you know. I was a hippie on that, so that shows you where the hair went. But it's great. All of a sudden, there's a lot of those shows that they are the classic TV series that everybody would watch. There was ER. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
ER?
Yeah, I remember it well, yeah.
I did the pilot for ER, and I had done another show called ER. It was a sitcom, and George Clooney did both of those. So I worked with George on the pilot of the dramatic one, and the sitcom with Elliot Gould and Mary McDonald and Conchata Ferrell. We did that too. So we're like the only two that did both of them probably. But ER is still around. I still get residuals for that.
And I suppose, Jeff, lastly, before I let you go, your character, Malcolm Jones, you said you were going to be an assistant sort of a criminal as such. When you saw the sort of writing on the script and what the Stephen Cannell sort of vision for you, what initially sort of came to your mind in terms of your portrayal of him? It was just to look at a menacing, demeaning sort of a character, or did you want to appear the more rational in terms of the evil sort of guys, but maybe Deke being the more psychotic, maybe you be the more sensible of the two? Because definitely he was the more psychotic in nature. He had a very vicious temper.
Well, I think the script did that work for me. The script, what I say and what the situations I'm in and how it's described in a script, I followed that. And that was the way they wrote it. They wanted him to be the main evil bad guy, and I'm just kind of a semi-evil bad guy. And so, like, there's part of it. Don't we crash a car through a house or something?
You do, yeah. You sort of push the car through the house. You go back to the to try and get a ransom, collect your ransom from a house where a mother and a kid are staying. Yeah,
that's right. So we pushed the car into the house, and that's how we got in, and we came in with our guns and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, I just did what it said in the script, and I let the words speak for themselves, and I let the situation speak for itself. So I might have come off as more rational, but that wasn't honestly an intent of mine. My intent when I first saw the thing was, first of all, I want more lines, but they didn't give me more lines. But then secondly, I thought, oh, my job here is to support Deke, the Deke character, is to be his right-hand man rather than to steal the scene or anything like that. So in terms of motivation, I don't know what I was thinking in that terms. Like, I'm desperate, so I started thinking of desperate things in my life when I was doing things like that, and motivated to try and get something I really want or something like that. I don't really remember, but I'm sure that probably entered into it.
And I suppose you mentioned that house scene, and I suppose that shoot 'em up scene that goes on in the house between yourselves and George Peppard. And was in terms of that, did you get to participate in the stunts of that in terms of firing blanks, maybe, or was that all done by stuntmen?
Yeah, it was the blanks were all there, and we did fire those. I don't think I got hit by a bullet. very few people get hit in these things. They
No,
just
no,
shoot
no.
and make it look real bad, but then they all walk away completely. No one got hit and everything's fine.
And was that very fun for you, getting to play that scene, shooting the blanks and the guns and the
Oh
sort
yeah.
of?
Oh yeah. It's like when you're a little kid, bang, bang, shoot 'em up. That's what we used to do when we were kids. We played cowboys and Indians a lot,
Yeah.
or army men, that kind of thing. So yeah, it was fun. It was reminiscent. I think that was the first show I got to shoot a gun. It was fun.
Okay. On that note, Jeff, we're not sort of promoting firearms by any means, but a pleasure talking to you this evening, reliving your memories of playing Malcolm Jones in season 3, episode 13 of the A-Team, one of the bad guys that have featured throughout the sort of 5 seasons. A rare sort of clientele. Jeff, a pleasure talking to you, and we wish you a prosperous 2021 and best of luck in your future endeavors.
Best of luck to you, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you.